Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today I'll be breaking down this week for NFL Sunday main slates here on DraftKings, talking through my favorite plays, some early little core plays, who we should start targeting when we're looking to build our lineups for week 4. So hopefully you guys tune in, hit that like button, and subscribe. And let's get into this breakdown. It was a great week 3 for me. So just to recap here a little bit, I got top 4,000 here in the Millie Maker. Really thought, I'd say about halfway through, I'd have a decent shot of maybe cracking into the top 1,000, top 500, depending if Brock Bowers could do anything. Unfortunately, it was the Trey Tucker show there for the Raiders, but it's always nice to forex your money in the Millie Maker. I also cashed the Sunday Night Football slate and the Monday Night Football slate as well, so it was a great weekend for me. Looking to continue that into this weekend. Hopefully, you guys had a good weekend as well, and this is what won the Millie: Geno Smith, Jonathan Taylor, Jordan Mason, Ricky Pearsall, Metcalf, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers wildly made it into the Millie Maker with only 9 fantasy points. CMC and the Vikings defense, obviously. But yeah, in terms of my lineup, obviously I went to the chalky Kenneth Walker, Jordan Mason. As you can see, 35 and 34% owned. Very, very high owned. And then from there, I kind of went very, very low ownership route. Like, I really, really liked and really thought that the Eagles and Rams game could turn into a shootout. Obviously, through the first half, it was looking very gross. The Eagles were getting destroyed. And then they came out in the second half and they remembered, oh, we're actually a good football team. We can throw the ball. So obviously, Jalen Hurts was great there, 30 fantasy points. We got that news late there for Ricky Pearsall. And so I kind of threw him into my lineup at the last second. Puka obviously looked really, really good there. If I was going to stack the Eagles, which originally I had Devontae Smith in over Ricky Pearsall, and I had Tyler Warren there in the flex, so I was going like double tight end. I didn't love it. We got that Ricky Pearsall news, so I was like, hey, I'm going to go to Ricky Pearsall and go to pay up for like Brock Bowers, and I had to pay down for Hunter Renfrow. I didn't love it, and it didn't work out, obviously, but still enough for me to, 4x my money there. So obviously a pretty strong week 3 for me. Hopefully you guys had the same. So starting off with the quarterbacks here for this slate. Obviously, we have the news of Jaden Daniels. Will he be back, or will it be the Marcus Mariota show once again? Obviously, Marcus Mariota had a really, really solid game there against the Raiders. So that's something we need to keep an eye out on for this week, as well as Brock Purdy. Will he be back, or will it be Mac Jones, who I think they said he re-hurt his knee and had to wear a brace kind of the last quarter of that game. So that's something we need to keep an eye out on, because obviously if both of them are out, then that really brings a question mark into who's going to be their quarterback going into that game. But yeah, in terms of the quarterbacks right now, there's like, I'd say 5 to 7 that I'm really keeping an eye on, that I think everyone's kind of gravitating towards. So obviously at the top, you have your two best, spend ups, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Prefer Josh Allen, even though it's a 15.5 point spread. They just got obviously a fantastic matchup there against New Orleans, so he looks like a really, really strong spend up. Lamar Jackson, don't love him against the Kansas City defense, but it is Lamar Jackson. We know the ability and the upside that he has. So he's just slightly below Josh Allen in terms of my favorite spend ups. Obviously, Jaden Daniels, we have to keep an eye out on that. Really, really like going back to the well here with Jalen Hurts, 6,700 going against Tampa Bay. I think that looks like a strong matchup. Hopefully they carry the momentum of the passing game into this matchup. So that looks really good there for me. Right now, probably my favorite quarterback to target. Moving on down a little bit more, I really like Jared Goff as like a contrarian secondary option. We just saw how many points they put up last night, 38. We know they're playing at home in the Dome. They're really, really good there. Obviously, Cleveland's defense is legit, and they're really good. But, I mean, it's Detroit Lions at home. I think if he's going to have, sub 10% ownership, maybe even sub 5% ownership, I think it's a really, really good idea to, get a Jared Goff stack into your lineup. So he looks really good. I think Justin Herbert right now is probably leading the way in terms of kind of most popular quarterback plays, just because he's playing at an MVP level. He has multiple guys you can stack him with. And obviously, Omarion Hampton had a really strong game there. So a lot of interest in the Chargers this week going against the abysmal New York Giants team. Moving on down a little bit more, as I mentioned, Brock Purdy, will he be back? If he is back, I actually do have a good amount of interest in him. Patrick Mahomes, I think right along with Jared Goff, is a really strong secondary option here. as a quarterback play. 6,000. Yeah, I don't love the players to stack him with. It could be one of those skinny stacks if you wanted to. But maybe Xavier Worthy's back. We'll have to wait and see. But going against Baltimore, they're going to need score points. I think he's a really strong contrarian option. Moving on down a little bit more, the last three I want to touch on is going to be, Caleb Williams coming off a fantastic game there. But it's one of those things, can he continue the success? The Cowboys defense is just absolutely god-awful, so he had a great game there. 5,800, the price didn't move, and he's going against the Raiders, who Marcus Mariota and them, they just put up, 40 points on them this past weekend. So he looks like a really, really strong pay-down option. Once again, a lot of players you can pair him with. You can even skinny stack him if you want. Moving on down, I like Drake May. It's just like I don't have a lot of faith with those pass catchers of who I want to target with him. So right now, he's kind of my least favorite of the group I mentioned, but still, I think he has good upside just because of that rushing upside. And as you can see, 16.8 and then 26 and 21. So it's like, doesn't have the pass catchers that you want to pair with him, but he can still go off. Then Geno Smith is probably the last one I'll mention as of right now. Obviously, a very early week look. Terrible game there. They were down like 30 the whole time. So this is kind of garbage stats here for Geno. 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, but still going against the Bears. Bears defense is absolutely god-awful, a team you want to target. So Geno Smith actually does look good this week at 5,400, and he has upside to go for 20-plus fantasy points. So that's great there at 5,400 in the quarterback. You can pair him with Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and even Trey Tucker, who we saw in the Millie Maker, was one of the best wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver, I think, on the slate last weekend with like 42 fantasy points. So in terms of quarterbacks, that's kind of the route I'm looking towards. I think right now, let's just go for the sake of this video, we'll just go with Justin Herbert, kind of the most popular play for quarterbacks. Now moving on to the running backs. Obviously, the top running backs, you got CMC, Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, Taylor, Derrick Henry, and James Cook. They all look really, really good. Once again, CMC's price went up a little bit, but still 15 targets this past weekend, 10 catches, 88 yards. I mean, once again, even if Juwan Jennings is back, CMC looks fantastic. Bijan Robinson looks really, really strong there against Washington. I like Gibbs there if you're going to go to a Jared Goff stack and you think that defense is going to be decently well against the Lions. I think Gibbs makes for a great, just kind of check down running back there. I really, really like Saquon Barkley here against Tampa Bay. One of those running backs who has really gone under the radar, hasn't really been talked about much here. And it's one of those things, right? Like he's seen that was 22 attempts there week 1, 24 in week 2, and then 22 in week 3. So, I mean, we know he's getting the volume. It's not like they're limiting him. It's just he really hasn't exploded yet. Absolutely love him here at that price tag. Jonathan Taylor playing like an MVP right now, as you can see, back-to-back games, 30-plus rushing attempts. I hesitate a little bit just because of they're going against the Rams at the Rams' home. And they lost Alec Pierce, which I think does mess with the dynamic of the offense a little bit just because they don't have that deep ball threat anymore. And the Rams are actually a pretty solid team, even though they kind of collapsed there against the Eagles this past weekend. So I just pumped the brakes a little bit on him. I really like him. He's an absolute beast. Just 7,500. I think I'd rather pay $100 more to get to a guy who is the same workload, probably better workload in terms of just pass catching ability, Saquon out of the backfield, and probably a better matchup. So that's my take there, but I think Jonathan Taylor's absolutely fantastic. I think Derrick Henry's another buy low piece. Like last night, as we saw, start off great. Obviously had that 30-yard rush for a touchdown and then didn't do really anything the rest of the game. And obviously had that huge fumble that really cost them to be able to tie the game there in the fourth quarter. So once again, 3 games with 3 straight fumbles for Derrick Henry. Obviously popped off in week 1, but obviously had a huge fumble where they lost because of it. Week 2 didn't do much against Cleveland, and week 3 was off to a great start and then really sputtered out. They were down, and he fumbled. So it hasn't been pretty for Derrick Henry, but we know he can go for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in any single game. So if he's going to come in at a very low ownership, I think he's a great contrarian play here. Obviously, James Cook going to be one of the chalkiest running backs for good reason. 15.5 point spread. He's kind of the only guy you feel trustworthy about when you play him with Josh Allen, just because, of the upside there. in terms of rushing the ball as well as receiving. And obviously, he's very touchdown reliant right now. A touchdown in every single game, had 2 in week 2, but still, it's a great team, great offense. Like, he's going to get those looks, so it's really hard not to like him there at that price tag, going against the Saints at 7,100. Then moving on down to kind of the 6K range here. My favorite player right now in the 6K range would be Ashton Genty. I know all over Twitter, people do not like him, but it's mostly because of just how terrible the offensive line is. Like, he's getting hit in the backfield like every single rush. And as I mentioned, the Bears are a defense you want to target because they're absolutely god-awful. So I wouldn't be surprised if Genty goes for 100-plus rushing yards and at least 1 touchdown in this game. So at 6,200, it'll be interesting to see what his ownership looks like this week. But I absolutely love him here as kind of a finally a breakout game for him to have a really, really solid game there. I will mention Bucky Irving's coming off his highest touch total game of his career. He went for 29 touches in that last game there. Obviously, there's no Mike Evans, so let's rely on him a little bit more. Kyron Williams, the workload's obviously fantastic. Good matchup there against Indiana. Kamara, always a solid bounce back spot, bring back spot there if you're going to go with the Buffalo stack. Chuba, always love his workload. Once again, he's going to see probably close to 20 attempts and touches every single week. Moving on down a little bit more, Amarian Hampton is going to be extremely chalky. I mean, obviously, terrible injury there for Najee Harris, but Amarian Hampton went out there and saw 26 touches, 19 rush attempts, 7 targets out of the backfield, 5,900. Gets a really, really good matchup here against the Giants. So once again, he looks really, really good here, really, really strong. Going to be probably the chalkiest running back on the slate, and for good reason. So I have a lot of interest in him. He looks really, really good. Moving on down a little bit more, I'll continue to mention Tony Pollard just because he's just a bell cow back. Obviously, the offense is terrible, but if they can click one of the weeks, he's coming at a very cheap price tag for his workload. Good amount of interest in him. Quinshon Judkins has kind of taken over the Browns' backfield for good. 18 rush attempts, 2 targets in that game against the Green Bay Packers, a good defense, and he had a really solid game, 16.5 fantasy points there. Obviously scored a touchdown, so some interest there in Quinshon. But once again, it's not the best matchup, right? Like, going against the Lions, the Browns' offense just looks abysmal. Joe Flacco looks like he can barely move in the backfield, so that's kind of the only limiting factor, is that will they be able to score enough points to keep them in the game for them to give enough rushing attempts and targets to Quinshon. Cam Scatterbo, another one of those cheap, popular running backs this week. Obviously losing Tyrone Tracy Jr. for about 2 to 4 weeks due to that shoulder injury. Obviously Cam Scatterbo, who was really good in my Sunday Night Football lineup, really helped me out there, helped me cash. He came in 10 rushing attempts, got a touchdown, and he had 8 targets, which is great to see him that he was heavily involved in that game. Obviously going against a really good defense, Kansas City. Ended up being a lot of checkdowns. Russell Wilson looked terrible. So will they have Jackson Dart? Who knows? If they do, I don't know what to do with Cam Scatterbo just because of that. Like, Jackson Dart could be one of those guys who's just going to sling the ball around, not really look to check down, because he does have the ability to run. So which could obviously hurt the upside there of Scatterbo a little bit. And it's not the best matchup, right, going against the Chargers. So he's going to be super popular. I don't mind getting to him, but right now I'd rather get to kind of paying up to running back, the top 2 guys, or going into like Amarian Hampton there at his price tag. Moving on down a little bit more, this could be the week that we get Travion Henderson. Ramondre Stevenson had 2 fumbles. Gibson had a fumble. And so it could be the Travion Henderson week if you wanted to go for like a kind of a dart throw, cheaper running back there. And then moving on down a little bit more, I don't think there's much here in kind of the lower range that we need to kind of look at. I will mention Woody Marks. I think he kind of reached the 40+% snap count or snap share percent for the Texans backfield. They're going to him a little bit more. I think we could finally see a breakthrough for him, starting in a few weeks here for the Texans. So 4,400, if you're just looking to get very, very, contrarian, looking for a dart throw, he could be your guy. Moving on to the wide receivers. So for the wide receivers this week, obviously Puka Nacua, probably the safest play you can get to, 7,900. Still relatively cheap just for his huge workload, huge ceiling. Looks really, really good here against Indiana. Going to be hard not to click on him once again. Nico Collins always makes for a solid, contrarian play. Just don't love the fact that CJ Stroud has been pretty brutal this year. As I mentioned with the Lions, they could be a really solid under the radar stack. So Amon-Ra, obviously have interest in him. I really like Malik Neighbors here as a bring back. Obviously, he was only held to 2 catches for 3 fantasy points. But he's one of the leaders in terms of first read rate, which is one of the best, if not the best, stat you could look to for like fantasy point projections. Malik Neighbors looks great in a bounce back spot, even though it's a tough situation going against the Chargers. Moving on down a little bit more, Emeka Egbuka, obviously with Mike Evans out for a few weeks, most likely. We'll have to wait and see. But he looks good as a really solid play there at 6.8. Should lead the team in terms of first read rate and target share. So good amount of interest in him. As I mentioned, that Mike Evans injury is the key news there. I really like Ladd. Obviously, if you're going to play Justin Herbert, Ladd makes for a great stack with him. Obviously, he's been the worst in terms of wide receivers on the team. You have Keenan Allen, who's been great. You have Quentin Johnston, who's been fantastic. And Ladd McConkey has obviously suffered because of that. But when you look at all the stats, he's one of the best in terms of separation. He's one of the best in terms of like in-breaking routes. Horizontal routes, which once again are like one of the best routes you could have for fantasy points. He has all that. He's checking all the boxes. It just hasn't turned into fantasy points yet. So he's just due for a big game here soon. I really like taking a shot at him against the Giants in the spot. Moving on down a little bit more. Once again, if you're going to go to the Eagles, which I really like heavily, A.J. Brown looks fantastic here in that match against Tampa Bay. Rome's price finally came up a little bit, but still, wide receiver 1 there for the Bears. He's been really, really good. Good amount of interest in him. I really like Devonta Adams here, like especially if you don't get to Puka, which is going to be hard not to get to him. I think you need to lock in Devonta Adams. Once again, he's extremely good at separating. Even though he's older, he's still one of the best at separating. Matt Stafford is just targeting him multiple times with these deep bombs, especially when they get in the red zone. He's kind of their number 1 red zone option in terms of targets. So a lot of interest in Devonta there at only 6,200. Fantastic matchup there against Indiana. Moving on down a little bit more. Tat, a nice bring back there against the Patriots. Even if Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback for the Patriots, is back, I still like Tat there. The key news for the Patriots, or excuse me, the Chiefs for there is going to be Xavier Worthy. Like, will he be back? If he is, I think we could definitely get to him. Ricky Pearsall coming off a great game there. Once again, even if Juwan Jennings is back, I still have a good amount of interest in Pearsall. If Juwan Jennings is actually back, I have a good amount of interest in him as well. So a lot to like there for the 49ers wide receiver core group. DJ Moore, Quentin Johnson, the price hasn't changed, and he's looked fantastic. So 7 targets, 7-10. He's getting a lot of long, deep throws as well, which, obviously catches those, could lead to big fancy points. So I don't know why they haven't changed the price on him or Keenan Allen. They're very, very cheap. Everyone's going to continue to go them. That's kind of why I like Ladd McConkey a little bit more, just because it'll kind of keep his ownership a little bit less, especially if you're going to that Justin Herbert stack. So I think all 3 look fantastic. It just comes down to ownership for me personally in terms of the Chargers. Like, Justin Herbert will probably be one of the chalkiest quarterbacks. And then I think a lot of the people will go to Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen just because of the box scores, right? Over a guy like Ladd, who, both guys have seen 14 or more fantasy points every single game in terms of Quentin and Keenan, and Ladd has seen pretty much 10 or less every single game. Obviously, he went to 13 in that first game, but still, I think this is just that ownership play for me to help me get it a little bit more different, or a little bit different in terms of that ownership there. Moving on down a little bit more, Devontae Smith, like him, I do have interest in the Buffalo Bills. I think Khalil Shakir would probably be my favorite wide receiver play, and then I do have a lot of interest in Olave. He's seen 10-plus targets every single game. Obviously, a 15.5-point spread. You don't love that, but he did play deep into the third, if not the fourth quarter there for this Seattle game when they were down pretty much 35 the whole entire game. I think it was like 35 or 38 to 3 or 6 at half, and he still played deep into the second half. So that's pretty interesting there, especially in a 15.5-point dog against Buffalo. Like, he could get run into the second half. I love that at 5.1K. Seeing 10-plus targets, I don't think you overthink that. I think you want to throw him in there. And then Michael Pittman Jr., him and Josh Downs are the last 2 guys I'll mention, just because with no Alec Pierce, they should get more targets. Michael Pittman has gone for 20 basically fantasy points in the past 2 out of 3 games to start the season. And then Josh Downs, with most likely Alec Pierce maybe missing. Want to keep an eye out on that. It does raise his floor a little bit there. And I'll mention Trey Tucker. Obviously, if you're going to Geno Smith, he looks good. And then where is Jacoby Myers? Right there, 5,400. Excuse me. Only saw 4 targets. They got blown out. It just turned into Geno Smith just looking for deep bombs to Trey Tucker, which worked out for them to get some points there. But yeah, he should see 10+ fantasy points in the competitive game going against the Bears. He looks really, really strong. And then moving on to defenses, or tight ends here for this slate. Brock Bowers, I had him last week. Obviously, he wasn't the best, but we're going against the Bears. His knee is definitely hurting his fantasy point projection and his fantasy point production overall. With 2 back-to-back very subpar games for one of the best, if not the best tight end in the league right now. So I like going back to the well here. 5,800 for him is very, very cheap. Obviously, if the knee is hurting him, it's limiting his upside. I just still think the ability for him to go off against the Bears is huge. As I keep mentioning, the Bears are a team you want to target. So he looks fantastic at 5.8. We'll throw him in there. Moving on down a little bit more, you can always stack Dalton Kincaid with Josh Allen. Mark Andrews obviously had a huge game there last night, 27. It looks to be kind of back for right now. Juwan Johnson, the price doesn't move. So if you go to Olave, you can always go to Juwan Johnson there. Going to see close to 10 targets. He's been very, very productive. Moving on down a little bit more, Hunter Henry had a great game there for the Patriots. He could be a skinny stack option with Drake May. Dallas Goedert, I think he looks pretty solid there. He only had 1 catch, but it was a long touchdown there for 33 yards. I expect him to get a little bit more involved going into the next week, especially if you go to Jalen Hurts. And then the last guy I'll mention is Cade Otton as of right now. We saw last year Cade Otton go for 15, 20+ fantasy points in a few different games when they were very limited in terms of the wide receiver injuries. So with Mecca Ibuka most likely being the number 1 option, Sterling Shepard, who I forgot to mention, is a wide receiver. He should look to have a really solid role, filling in for Mike Evans, being that wide receiver 2, as Ibuka slides as wide receiver 1. But yeah, I think Cade Otton could be the best option, 3.4K. We saw him have huge games. We saw Baker rely on him. It could be with a similar situation. So I like to get a shot on him. And that's really it as of right now for the tight ends. And then in terms of D, as always, you could pay up if you wanted to, but it's always, a little bit easier to pay down to help you kind of pay up for a better spot. So right now, these are kind of my early core plays: Justin Herbert, Saquon, James Cook, Ladd McConkey, Chris Olave, and Brock Bowers. So hope you guys liked the video. Hit the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later in this week for a Thursday Night Football slate breakdown, as well as my final core play video and breakdown of this main slate here for Sunday. So hope you guys liked the video. Appreciate it. Peace.